just focusing on one platform? Is it that you can reduce overwhelm for your client? Do you think it's a level of, like, we sometimes overthink what's valuable, we overprocess, we overthink, oh, what about this post? Maybe this isn't valuable.
If you're trying to strive for the perfect post, it's then going to become a bit of a time drain, and it's become extra stress.
How do you, is it just like relying on motivation?
Yeah, I mean, if I don't get it done, nobody else is going to get it done. That's a pretty strong motivation.
Sometimes it's not worth the headache. A lot of people were saying AI is going to take our jobs.
People will still buy from people. People will still want to learn from people.
I think for me, the people who are going to stand apart are the ones who are going to use it to accelerate what they're doing and not replace them.
Believe in yourself more.
Thank you for your time, Dan.
Thank you.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to a brand new episode. Today we're going to be talking to Dan, who's a social media consultant. And so Dan, just before we start, I mean, do you do just management? Do you help people with content? Like, let's just paint that picture for people who are maybe interested.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me on this afternoon. Well, I am a social media trainer, social media manager, originally from Devon, now based in Bournemouth. And I work with service-based business owners, so local business owners that need more local clients. So the service is basically helping business owners. So that's through social media training, one-to-one, or maybe in a group setting to help them do it better for themselves. More specifically, that could be help with Facebook, advertising training, the basics of Instagram, or maybe improving their LinkedIn profile as well. So there's that side of it. The other side of it is more for the established businesses that have been in business for some time that need a presence because they just don't have, they've already got the customers, they're already really busy. And I help save them time by doing the social media management for them. So, for example, doing LinkedIn posts on a weekly basis, sort of like on a monthly retainer, coming up with different ideas for content for them through that as well, and just giving them a fresh start to social media, really.
What do you think people either get wrong in marketing right now, or like what are the missed opportunities, would you say, as a whole, in marketing at the moment, either specifically on social media or actually wider spread in more traditional marketing space, would you say?
Yeah, sure. I mean, my bread and butter is the social media marketing side of things. And I think the big thing for me at the moment, and this has been the case for the last sort of 9 years of doing this, is that there's so much noise out there, so much overwhelm for business owners that it can be a real struggle. And I'm not talking about the people that have got big teams or in-house marketing departments. I'm talking about the people running businesses on their own. They've got a solid business and they've got something that people want, but they're frustrated because they don't know what to do in terms of social, and they have so much conflicting bits of advice from people out there, and maybe they watch some videos on YouTube and that advice isn't really tailored to their business. Maybe it's more for creators or influencers, for example, and they get lost in all this noise. And rather than just really nailing and focusing on one platform that could really help their business grow, they then spread themselves too thinly, and they're trying to do a bit of this, they're trying to do a bit of that because they've heard their friends say they need to be doing this, they need to be doing that, when ultimately, they've got a business to run. They haven't got all the time to do that. So that is what a lot of the service has been over the last 9 years, is working with those people that maybe haven't grown up with social media. And that's truly my passion, to sort of empower them to use it for their businesses. And sometimes, they're a little bit nervous, they've got technophobia, and they're scared to. And I think you said about missed opportunities. I think when you take a step back and look at things, like let's rewind the clock, maybe I'm thinking about times here, 20 years ago, maybe. I think I'm looking at, yeah, maybe a little bit more, but you've got a chance to be in front of a camera and speak to your audience all across the world, or all across the country, or whatever the context may be. And that's not an opportunity you had all that time ago. And this is, obviously the way we are now with smartphones and social media. We're so used to it, so embedded into our day-to-day culture, that it's quite interesting to just take a little bit of a step back and realize the opportunity you've got there to build that emotional connection with people that are following you as well. And I've seen it time and time again. I'm talking about like supplement shops and fitness shops back in Torbay, just doing simple videos, and that's just a great way to get yourself out there, get people to know, like, and trust you, really.
You mentioned that you mainly focus on one platform, right? And I think that's a misconception sometimes, because I think people, when they work with me or when we work with you, etc., maybe we look at, like, let's dominate across all of the platforms because we have a larger reach, we can reuse our content, etc. But I guess on the other side of that, what would you say is the pro to just focusing on one platform? Is it that you can reduce overwhelm for your client, perhaps? Is it kind of one of those things that some people say, like, you start on one, then you build to two, then you build to three? Are you, because the counter argument would be, like, are we putting all of our eggs in one basket, right? And are we concerned, like, let's for example, if you're business to business, which a lot of my audience is, okay, then you should just solely focus on creating LinkedIn content, right? I mean, is that the case, would you say?
I think it's different for each business owner in terms of where they're at in their journey. So if you're starting out, I think, like you said, it's good, as we both agree on, it's good to focus on one platform and then you can move on to another. It just depends the resource that you've got, the budget that you've got, time that you've got as well. So if you really, like you mentioned, obviously, the example of business owners really focused on LinkedIn, focused on the content, you've got a strategy for direct messaging, you're not just spray and pray, hoping for the best, you've got time, and you can build a tailored, solid audience of people that actually need your service. Then it just gives you that clear focus. Some people have got a better aptitude or sort of natural flair for it anyway, really. So maybe using LinkedIn and maybe Facebook, and in some cases, with LinkedIn and using the Facebook personal profile in professional mode, like a lot of people do, you can then repurpose some content as well, because some of that content can be suitable for both, but each platform has its own quirks. So I think, yes, if you're starting out, then starting on one platform and really focusing on getting that right, getting the right audience, getting the right content, not overcomplicating things. That's a big thing, really. So yeah.
I think there's I guess, a question on volume. Like, that was gonna be my next question in respect to, like, there is a nature to social media where you have to do a level of volume, especially at the start, to be able to gain enough data to understand what works and what people resonate with and what people really enjoy. But, personally, just for the audience's sake, and maybe your case as well, I've been very fortunate where my new marketing strategy of saying yes and, so this is a very volume dominated approach, with, because value is subjective, so I always try to add value in content, of course, but for me, I've been a very, very focused on daily output as the metric, and then overall arching numbers in regards to views, watch times, growth, etc., for that window of time across a month, for example. And I think if I'll put on the screen if I get it wrong, but I think it's around 200k at the moment per month that we're hitting across 5 platforms. Of course, that will change by the time this comes out, but at the time of recording, it's around there. And I think when I talk about those big numbers, I think people find them very intimidating, and they can find that maybe it is because of, like, the volume, or it's because, like, I'm very seasoned in knowing how to create content in volume but also high value. What advice would you give to someone who's maybe looking at that approach, looking at, I mean, firstly, would you agree with that approach, number one? Number two, what advice would you give to someone who is maybe looking at what I'm doing and seeing success in, and maybe wants to emulate it as a whole, from a volume perspective, from a distribution perspective, and I guess in some ways, how do we check in with, is that in line with making our boat go faster, but also, are we overwhelming ourselves as a creator?
Yeah, sure. I think at the end of the day, like you said, volume is important. I mean, that's certainly what I'm focusing on, and how we connected through the Facebook personal profile that I've switched into professional mode, like most people do, because my audience is getting bigger and bigger. I'm just keeping it simple, getting people into a Facebook group, and it just becomes a numbers game, really, essentially. But having said that, like, obviously this opportunity came up a few weeks ago to speak to you. I've had other opportunities have come up as well from just having those sheer numbers on, Facebook professional profile is my biggest audience, if you like. So there's a lot of scope for that, really. And
Do you think it's a level of like we as in the royal we as in everyone maybe listening or us, we sometimes overthink what's valuable, we overprocess, we overthink, oh, what about this post, right? What about this? Oh, maybe this isn't valuable. Because when I kind of, it's not that I'm not having a threshold of what's worthy, but I'm letting the audience tell me what's valuable in regards to their views, in regards to their likes, in regards to their numbers, in regards to their comments, etc. Do you think that's like one of the things that people need to get into the habit of doing? Because I think sometimes we get so close to perfectionism that we don't actually execute on all the ideas that we maybe have as business owners for great marketing or great social media.
Yeah, I mean, working like one to one with a lot of clients, talking service based business owners, and it sometimes it's a case of getting over yourself and just posting things. Sometimes things will flop, sometimes things will take off in terms of your post, and you'll be surprised by it. Really, and you can only learn by experimenting as well, really. And in terms of business, I'm guilty sometimes of in my early stages of overthinking things and not executing. Whereas actually, if you execute, then you learn more as you go along. And I think that there's no such. I think if you're trying to strive for the perfect post, and I'm not talking so much from a creator perspective, or I'm talking more from a business owner perspective, looking to generate more local clients, for example. That you just it's then going to become a bit of a time drain, and it's become extra stress rather than. And this is the importance of having like your content pillars in place, so you know what you're posting about, and you're just keeping it simple. It doesn't have to be anything earth shattering. You've got your content pillars in place, you know what your themes are, you know what your topics are, you can brainstorm your ideas, and you can have a bit of fun with it. And it's just always key. That's why I'm so passionate about content marketing. It's always just so key to have your audience in mind. I think, are you speaking directly to your audience? Or are you just trying to speak to everybody, or speak quite broadly, and then missing the mark with everyone, really?
Yeah, I mean, as a whole, I think, like, especially when we start out, we maybe worry about, as I say, like getting into that. What if people don't like the post, or what if like people don't like me, or etc. And we lean into that kind of like, oh, I'm gonna sound stupid on camera, or like, oh my god, I'm talking on my phone, what a weirdo, that kind of thing. I mean, it's a similar feeling to I think when we start networking, and I did want to touch on it a little bit with networking. I mean, personally, I've stepped away from networking, like the traditional sense of going to a room, about a year and a half ago. But the reason for that is like for me, like it's just a scale thing, right? I'm at a stage where I'm very fortunate, where I've got a good number of clients, and whenever I do my marketing, I need it to be efficient and also scalable. So, and there could be arguments, and there is arguments, I'm sure, to say, well, actually, no, that's the time when you should be doubled down onto networking and etc. and etc. But for those people who are maybe starting out and really focusing on like maybe they're in the first year, right? What would you say like they should do if they're nervous about being on camera, they're nervous about going to a networking event, or they're nervous about speaking in front of a room, or those I think pillars of any business to build, right? Because I think when I talk about networking now, it's from the context of I'm nearly a 10-year-old business, and in my first 5 years, I heavily networked. So I'm leaning on that network now. It's not that it's not valuable. It's kind of the season I was in business for me personally. I mean, just to reiterate the question, I mean, how did you personally, when you started networking, like tackle those fears and those challenges and those concerns around like, oh my god, I've got to talk to people who I don't know. Oh my god, I've got to potentially like introduce myself like in a networking.